Welcome back to the countryside farm, where I started from nothing and now trying to crush the massive lizard mining corporation and trying to rebuild the old broken down countryside town. I want to bring life, prosperity back to these lands through farming. Before we get back to farming though, let's run through everything I own. Over here I got my greenhouses, which grow mushrooms and berries, and then I own 3 fields. One already got canola on, the small field has oilseed radish on, and my massive field still needs to be planted. Then lastly I have a small sheep pen, which contains 16 merino sheep. The first thing I did was started cultivating my harvested wheat field. The wheat didn't make much profit last season, so I need to consider doing something else on it. That's when Ben called me. He had some bad news. Last season he lost his potato harvest and isn't financially capable of planting these 2 fields this year. He asked me if it would be possible for me to lease the fields this year. Last season was a pretty profitable season for me, so I was in the position to do so, but I first drove to the fields and checked how it looked. Ish, I see peas are also withered and are fully fertilized, so that's a lot of money lost upon one field. And here is the potatoes he talked about, seem to be rotten inside the ground. I went back and told him not to worry about these fields. I will work it for him this year. It will cost me around $780 for the whole year's lease. I think I will manage to make more from the fields than what I have to pay him, or I hope so. I went home, jumped into the John Deere and started cultivating again. After I finished my field, I quickly went to do the 2 new fields as well. I finished just before 6 and went home to check what I can plant on these fields. I decided to use one of the fields to plant alfalfa to feed my sheep throughout the year. Oh no, that needs to be in today, otherwise I'm gonna miss the planting window, and the next planting window is only February. I jumped back into the tractor, attached the seeder and went off planting the alfalfa. Now I can finally get some rest. The next morning I detached the seeder. I will be only using it in 2 months time from now. I went off to check on my alfalfa, and damn, it looks beautiful. I noticed the weeds stand very tall in my canola field, so I went to the market, bought a tank of herbicide, loaded it with the market's forklift on the pickup truck and brought it home. I attached the sprayer, fill it up and start spraying the weeds between the canola. Now all the weeds are dead. And that's when Ben called me again. He got another massive problem on his hands. His largest field soybeans are ready for the harvest, but his equipment is busy on other fields. He said he'll pay me if I can go and harvest his field for him. I started the class combine again and went to the field and started harvesting his massive soybean field. The yields on the field was really good, and now I understand why I want to get it off this quickly. I spent the whole morning harvesting his field. Now I just need to unload the soybeans. I'm maybe also going to plant soybeans next season. It looks like a solid crop. I loaded his soybeans and finished off the job. He paid me $3,506 for it. I brought back the combine and the tractor with the trailer. Next I filled up the sheep trough, loaded my leftover lime from last season onto the trailer, attached the spreader, took it to the field and started liming my other leased field. After the lime spreading I had a bit of time left, so I decided to hop into my pickup truck, and go explore a bit. I came across this half-built bridge, and with perfect precision, I managed to get over it. I drove through a narrow pass in between mountains and reached a new wooden cabin in the middle of nowhere. I climbed out to check it a bit. There was no one here. I really think this is how a horror movie started. So I decided to jump back into the truck and went further down the road. That's when I reached this dead end and I noticed something. This massive redwood type tree sprouting from the earth's soil. It was majestic trees, and whoever moved here, I think is planning to cut these down. I have to stop it somehow. So I decided to go back home. And there it happened. I fell with my truck in between the bridge. Gee, I fell out the truck into the water, swam to the other side and ran home to get the tractor. Wait, why is there a man standing on top of the combine for no reason in the middle of the night? I didn't think much about it, jumped into the John Deere, went to the market, bought a strong chain, attached it to the back of the tractor, and I used the highway bridge to get over to the other side. And I drove through this thick grass. I really hope I would get to the truck. Somehow I did. I parked close by with the tractor and slowly attached the chain to the back of the pickup truck. Then I started pulling with the tractor. I barely managed to get the truck onto the bridge. The tractor just had enough horsepower for the job. After I completed the task, I took the tractor home and I ran all the way back to my pickup truck. And luckily it started and I brought it back home. Ish, this was an eventful day. I think I deserve a bit of rest now. The next day I put the chain away, check up my produce, look at the sheep. They are making a lot of wool, but the prices will be better in April, so I still gonna wait before selling it. I loaded up all my berries, eggs and mushrooms and took it to the market and I got $4,825 for it. I went home. With my new money, I bought another greenhouse for $9,000. Filled it up with some water and decided to plant tomatoes inside this greenhouse. I attached the cultivator, got into winter clothes and went off cultivating my oilseed radish field. The oilseed radish should by theory improve the crop I plant in the next season. I hope it will do so. After my cultivation, I gave the field lime and that's when David, Ben's son, called me. He asked me if I could quickly cultivate two fields which are next to each other. I accepted the job and cultivated these fields. After I finished, I collected a total of $2,726. I went home and parked everything inside and decided I want to have a new tractor in the future. So I started sourcing through the market and came across this 30k Stara tractor, which was cheap for the amount of horsepower it has, but let's see what the future brings. The next day it was proper winter, so that means I don't have much to do. So that gave me an idea to return to my little forest. I want to clear this whole area. I put some wood chopping clothes on and started deforestating this whole area. I built a firewood chopping station as well as leasing a skid steer with the forest attachment. I used the skid steer to transport all my logs into the chopping area. After a whole day of cutting, I managed to clear out this whole space and with that managed to pile up this mass amount of logs. I took the John Deere and removed the brush and brambles with the old mower. Once these logs are removed, I think I can extend the sheep pen into this area. But now I have a massive task at hand. All these logs need to turn into firewood. The next morning I noticed that my sheep didn't have any food left, so I quickly loaded up some offcuts onto the flatbed trailer and took it off to the market. I sold it for $2,637 and bought 3 hay bales, which I brought home with the trailer and fed the sheep. After my sheep were fed, I sold another trailer of offcuts for $7,552, followed by another one which made me $4,510. I attached the seeder because it is now time to plant the barley. Loaded it up with seed and started planting my largest field with barley for the season. I really hope that the barley makes more profit than the wheat of last year. Luckily the fields weren't too wet because I had no snow this year, so my John Deere with a very slow pace could do the job. I only stopped one time to fill up the seeder at the market and finish off planting the barley. I also decided to plant one of my lease fields some barley as well. I will have a lot of barley to sell by the end of this harvesting season. I went to my final field and wanted to plant peas, but it could only be planted the next month. So I went back to the wood chopping station and finished the rest of the day's work. The next morning I was up nice and early and started loading all of my firewood which I accumulated over the whole winter month. I managed to fit all upon a single load and took it off to the market. I sold it for a staggering amount of $34,822. This was the most money I have ever seen. But it's also sad to see how much money the wood makes, because it lets me think of the place I visited with those massive redwood trees. Someone is going to chop them down and make a lot of money out of it, because wood is so profitable. But I also loaded all of my produce, which is the berries, eggs, mushrooms and tomatoes, which I sold for $8,778. I decided to sell my wool as well and made $6,733. I think I have enough money to finally buy myself a proper tractor. I went to the market and saw my dream tractor, Valtra. I needed a bit more money for it, so I made a quick plan by selling 5 of my older sheep and bought my dream tractor. It was beautiful and brand new. I drove it home, attached the seeder, and wow, this tractor was so much better than my old John Deere. It literally planted triple the speed. I finished off planting the peas, parked the seeder inside, and took a deep breath, appreciating the distance I've managed to come. I went checking up on my fields and noticed that there was wheat which started growing from the barley fields, and my alfalfa field is slowly coming along. I attached the sprayer, and with my new GPS in the Valtra, I started spraying my fields very comfortably, and luckily the barley was still in its first growing stage, which means my massive tires didn't do too much damage. I think I should invest into narrow tires for the next spraying. I finished off the spraying quickly and got a call from Walter. He wants me to plow one of his fields. This would be a great opportunity to test my new tractor in front of a heavy demanding plow. I went to the field and let's say the plow did not hold the Valtra back at all. I quickly ran through the whole field. After I was done, I went to collect the money from Walter and show off my new tractor to him. Now for the rest of the day I did some firewood chopping. The next morning I was up and early, looked at all of my firewood production I managed to produce. I hopped into the John Deere, attached the mower and started chopping the alfalfa. Something is telling me it is still too early to chop these. But I need to figure out a way to tether these in order for it to dry out. Luckily I met up with Katie. She got a full set of class tools which I can lease to do the job. So I get the class tether and I did the field. It was a quick job. I just now have to wait for the alfalfa to dry out before windrowing it. I took the remaining firewood to the shop and sold it off for $18,130. Lovely. Thereafter I put on some narrow tires on my Valtra for spraying so that I don't damage the crops. Attach the mixing wagon and fill it to the tip-top full liquid fertilizer. Now I'm ready to do some proper spraying. After the spraying, the crop should be fine to grow its full potential because I did all the necessary things, like I spraying the weeds and I did my 2 cycles of fertilizer. I hope with this good weather I will have a great harvesting season. After spraying the fields, the alfalfa was nice and dry, so I windrow it, followed by picking it up with the baler. Yeesh, I only made 1 full bale on this field. Better than nothing though. I took the skid steer and fetched the bale, which I then drop off at by the sheep pen. Then I bought some much needed chicken feed, loaded it up on the back of my pickup truck, brought it home to feed the chickens. With the money I had left from selling off the firewood earlier, I decided to buy a beehive. This will be potentially another great income for my farm. And I went to rest the rest of the night. The next morning I checked up on all my produce, looked at my first honey, and the canola was flowering. This is perfect timing because the bees can pollinate the canola and in return make a lot of honey. It is a win-win situation. I noticed that the wood chips have a great demand deal, and with all the firewood production I had a lot of excess wood chips. I put up the sides on the back of my trailer and loaded it up full of wood chips and went off to the market. This market is in a sketchy place, but I figured out a way to get there and sold off the wood chip for a proper $3,056. I went home, loaded up all the leftover produce and went and sold that for $18,348. Damn, that's a lot of money. I should invest this into something again. But for now I have another project to work on. I asked Ben if I can remove this boulders between his 2 fields. He didn't mind me doing it, so I loaded the skid steer and went to the market, got the required tools for the job, went to the site and started smashing away against these massive boulders. After destroying all the boulders, I loaded the debris into the trailer with the skid steer. Then I took it off with the pickup truck to the Lizard Mining Corporation, where I only sold it for $398. Not much. Then I remember I'd forgotten to spray the weeds in my peas field and didn't want to change the tires on the Valtra back to narrow tires, so I quickly used the John Deere to spray the weeds. With my money I decided I wanted to upgrade my sheep pen. So I built this shed and expand my grazing area to cover this whole deforested area. I bought 1 merino ram and 20 new merino ewes. This is a nice grazing area for the sheep. I think I can get a lot more sheep in this pen. I parked everything away and went to rest for the rest of the night. The next morning it was raining heavily, which is good for the crops, but it also meant there wasn't a lot of things to do in the rain, so I went back inside and waited for the rain to clear up. After the rain cleared up, Ben called me and asked if I can cultivate his largest field he owned. I don't have any other jobs to do today, so I did say yes and started cultivating his massive field. I must say, with the GPS, I can quickly run through this field. I finished up and collected $3,225. Then I rent and rest for the rest of the night. The next day it was pouring down and the fields was ready for the harvest, but I need to wait for the rain to clear before I can start harvesting. So I waited, and not long, around 10 o'clock it was bone dry again. We loved the summer sun. I jumped into the class combine, got to the canola field and started my second harvesting season on the farm. The canola was massive, which means my class combine couldn't harvest it quickly. I slowly finished up the field and only harvested 1,930 liters of canola, which I loaded into my silo. Then I moved on as quickly as possible to the barley field. I could see that this field was going to be promising. The barley seeds are much bigger than the canola seeds, which means I'm going to harvest way more of it. I harvested 9,693 liters on my first field, and then I started harvesting the second barley field. The field's yield also looked solid, but it was much smaller than the other fields, so I only managed to get off 3,591 liters. I parked the combine back in its place, loaded up the barley into the silo, jumped into proper clothes because it is now time to do some harvesting, and that is the piece which I need to do manually. I managed to finish off the field around 8 o'clock and I was very tired, so I went straight to the bed. The next morning it was hailing outside. I quickly loaded the boxes of peas onto the pickup truck and parked it underneath the roof to keep it dry. Then I waited for the rain to clear. It eventually did, but I needed to get my alfalfa cut to the day because I needed to return the field back to Ben the next month. So I decided to pay someone to do the cutting while I started loading all the produce for the summer, and it was a lot of produce. I sold everything off for a staggering amount of $27,750. I then sold the barley for $7,899 and the canola for $4,122, and then I loaded the peas and I sold it for $7,432. I went to check up on the worker, which was going on fine. Then I decided this shed in my farm, I'm never using it and it's just taking up a lot of space. I figured to turn it into a spinnery because it had enough space for all the necessary equipment to turn my wool into fabric. It only cost me $5,000 to do so. I went to collect the wool and started with the fabric production line. This will hopefully generate a lot of money in the future. I checked up on the worker and decided to finish off the alfalfa cutting by myself. But that is it for me. I really hope you enjoyed the farming season, and if you're still watching and want to see another one, comment farmer down below. I haven't crushed the lizard mining corporation yet, but I believe I'm on the right path. Have a lovely day. Goodbye.